Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for the 2021 Athena panel discussion. We are here at the beautiful Dundee Garden, so we'd like to thank them for hosting us today in this wonderful setting. And Michaela from our chamber team is going to introduce our wonderful panelists today and our two hosts.
Sure. So to start us off, our two hosts are Carrie Miscavige, the Vice President of Sales and Marketing of the Times Leader, and also Susan Magnotta, and she is the Director of Marketing and Development at Diamond City Partnership. To introduce our panel, from left, our first panelist is Elizabeth Graham, the 2009 recipient and COO of Rick's Asset Management Company. Next, we have Kathy Dunsmuir, 2018 recipient, Senior Vice President and Wealth Management Director at PNC Bank. And then next, we have Ruth Corcoran, which is our 2020 recipient, owner and CEO of Corcoran Communications. And last but not least, we have Tara Mugford-Wilson, 2019 recipient and President of Power Engineering Corporation and owner of Shoes.
And so now to kick us off, our chairs are going to start asking some questions. So these are questions that have been submitted by our Women's Network. And at the end of the discussion, don't forget to stay tuned the whole time because we'll make an exciting announcement of our 2021 Athena recipient. So Carrie and Susan, take it away.
Welcome, ladies. Are we ready?
We're ready.
All right, Tara, I'm going to start. Different facets of it over the years, but had zero interest in actually ever committing to being there. I studied finance and marketing and worked for P. Marwick in their financial management consulting division, and during the S&L loan scandals was like doing a lot of work there, and it was just a situation that I didn't ever think it would be a good fit. And my dad called me one day, and I had some things change into my life that were different and interesting, and he said, I really could use your help. And I said, okay, what do we think the cost structure would look like here? And he said, I'll pay you less than half what you make now. You can work home. It's not a good offer. Long term, not being the best plan. For the short term, for the long term, it was a really, really good move. And I started as the special project manager, really not sure if I would have stayed or not. In an industry that is not, known to be particularly populated with women, it was an interesting career choice, but I would not change any of it. I have thoroughly enjoyed working with my family. I have thoroughly enjoyed having the ability to be part of my community that I grew up in. To raise my family here has been, the biggest gift ever, and I can honestly say, although the path may not have been clear with, it was the best decision I ever made. Thank you, Tara. Ruth?
Well, my career path in marketing was a long one to get to, unlike yours. I actually went to school for criminal justice and wanted to be in the FBI. That was my goal. So I worked in college in some security jobs and decided I didn't really like that. I didn't want to do that. And then I got married and I had my son, and I went back to school for information technology because computers were becoming hot back then. That was in the old days when computers were just up and coming. I did that for a while. I got divorced, and by that time had another child, so I went into banking, full-time work in banking, and moved up through various positions. And I got introduced to marketing, which I loved. So I went back to school again and took marketing classes. And I ended up as a marketing manager at Mellon, now Citizens Bank, and left to work for an ad agency, started up a PR division there, and then left to start my own marketing business more than 20 years ago, and looking for a way to be home and be more flexible for my children. So I took the roundabout way of getting there with a lot of different career paths, but it's worked out.
Thank you, Ruth. Kathy?
Well, mine is interesting, and I don't know that you will see this happen today, but actually I wanted to go into nursing, and I had taken my nursing exam. And my mother said to me, you will make an awful nurse. And, at the time I thought, how rude, but she was right. And I, at the time, worked for Walter Mitchell, who owned Biddle and Eno Insurance at that time in the old First Eastern, now PNC Bank building. And he literally took me by the hand. We were on the 9th floor. And we went down to the 5th floor, which was the HR for First Eastern Bank at the time. And he he said to Joe McCune, you need to hire her. And he did. That was a Friday. I started at the bank on Monday, and in June I will be celebrating 44 years with the same bank. So it's been a tremendous, tremendous career. I can't think of anything better. It's been quite a ride, as I'm sure almost all of us will note back then, for women in these industries, Tara, you and Ruth and Liz, coming up through the ranks in them, but it's been great. So Mom was right again.
As always.
Thank you, Kathy. Liz?
So I feel like my story's been told a million times, so I'll give the abridged version. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and so I got a job at a law firm, and no offense to lawyers, but the actual job of lawyering is not the most exciting job in the universe. But it turns out that I'm pretty good at marketing, and the lawyers identified that, and so I worked for a firm in D.C., had offices all across the country, and they asked me to manage their marketing for them. So I did that for about 10 years, and then I had one of those life-changing moments. A close friend of mine growing up, she and her husband were killed unexpectedly in a helicopter accident, and it just shook me, and I thought, gosh, the last 10 years have gone by like that. How do I want to make the next 10 years go? And so I spent some time, reflecting on that, and decided that I wanted to spend more time with family. I wanted to see my niece and nephew grow up. Maybe I would have a family of my own someday, but regardless, I needed to take more time for myself. And so, good news, bad news, whatever, I had a really good reputation in the legal marketing industry. And so when I put it out there that I was looking for a position closer to northeastern Pennsylvania, I had a couple of job offers immediately. And I called up my brother and I said, I'm going to take a firm in Rochester, New York, offered me a position, I'm going to take it. And well, I'll be based in D.C. It'll allow me to go back and forth to Rochester and spend some time in PA. And he said, well, I never thought you'd leave your law firm. And I said, yeah, I want to spend more time with you guys. And he said, well, how about a lot more time? And so he invited me to come back. It was March of 2001, and asked me to, he recruited me that weekend, and I left D.C. in May. And I've been with our family business and investment advisory firm for 20 years now. So that was my way. But those moments, you just never know when you're going to have something happen that just causes you to reassess. And sometimes it's your mom, right? Sometimes it's a divorce, or your father calling you out. But they happen.
Thank you, ladies. Yeah, it's very interesting because I think a lot of us have had those moments this year. Actually,
For sure.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. Okay, Tara, we'll start with you again. Was there a specific experience or person that inspired you to become the leader that you are today?
I can't say that it's one person. I mean, I think we all have a lot of different influencers in our life. I could probably name 25 right here, right now, that have, some of them sitting in this room, have had an amazing impact on how I lead, and kind of, I think it's changed over time. I think my style continues to evolve depending on, the circumstance or the situation or the players, but I can honestly say, being in this town, I have had the privilege on all of the boards that I serve, having mentors that, whether they realized it or not, just their leadership style has influenced my own. So my parents clearly, but I think above and beyond my parents, there have been some really spectacular people who have, been part of my ride, and I'm appreciative for them every day.
Ruth?
I think that my mother influenced me a lot in that regard. She had a good career in retail management, successful career, And I got to watch her not only work very hard, because it was a lot of hours, but also mentor a lot of the younger women underneath her. It was down in the Allentown area, and a lot of young women who didn't know what they wanted their career path to be, and she would encourage them to go to college and, mentor them in that way and help them maybe think about a career. Watching her do that and, work so much and still be able to raise us, and then also watch her give back to the community. I remember when I was young, she was a Girl Scout leader. She was always active in the church, anything she could get her hands on. I think in addition to what Tara said, as I got older and got into the workforce, she started me on that path of what a leader should be, and then others through my involvement with Leadership Wilkes-Barre, which I think all of us have had that, got us a bird's eye view of the community and what the needs were in the community. So I think all those things together, but starting with her.
Yeah, I'd have to say my mother, initially. My mom was a single mom in, that time frame. I always gave her a lot of credit for, taking the stand and raising us, my brother and I. That was hard to do, but I can tell you we had a tremendous childhood, and she was just a strong woman who gave back and was so, my friends, my mom was their mom, and it was so, it started there, and I think we all need to start with that base of, I try and do that with my grandchildren, and I've tried to do it with my children, and again, as we get older and we're exposed to everybody, I said my favorite song is, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the Broadway show Wicked, but the song For Good is like, just really touches me because, the sentence in the song is, because I knew you, I have been changed for good. And I think it's reflective of all the people I've met along the way that really have, changed me and helped me in my leadership ability.
I would echo what everybody has said. I am inspired constantly by people that have mentored me, and also people that maybe I mentor in some way. But the very beginning, I grew up I won the lottery when I was born into my family, because I have two phenomenal parents and great siblings. And I think that what was interesting about our upbringing is that there were high expectations set for us. And I talked to other friends of mine, and they're like, oh, our parents didn't expect anything of us. I'm like, you're kidding. Because like my father sat me down in the 5th grade and said, your job as a human is to leave the world a better place than you found it. And the way you set those goals is you write them down. And I literally in 5th grade wrote down goals of how I was going to improve the world. And I still have that piece of paper. And I think to myself, what a gift to have that sort of recognition so early on. So, my parents and the leaders that, I'm around.
That's nice.
All right, ladies, big question. How did COVID-19 affect your
Oh.
professional and personal lives?
Yeah, COVID-19, I think we talked about this a little bit before we started filming. How do you even put a fence around that? It is just the most outlandish thought process, nothing any of us, unless you were here for the Spanish flu, lived through. And I can only say that I always thought I worked hard, and I have worked hard. I don't think there's anybody that knows me that would call me a slacker. I have worked harder in the last year, and I think the people that I know have worked harder in the last year to exhaustion. So for me, I think it has been a real lesson in trying to figure out the balance of it, which I failed miserably at, candidly, really badly. I have watched people in my organizations pick up the slack for me because I have burnt myself out, which has been unbelievably beneficial on all fronts. when you see what people are capable of in crisis, you have a whole new respect for what you may. Wow, they are just spectacular people, and thank God I'm surrounded by them every single day.
Good answer, Tara. Thanks. Ruth?
I feel like I'm a totally different person now, post-COVID, if it is post-COVID. I think my priorities have totally changed. Work, I lost one of my major clients that was a large production company for live shows, which of course they had to shut down. So I had to totally change the way we worked and be more proactive with the clients that were essential that I did have left, and you're constantly scrambling. But I think on a more personal level, I saw a lot of my close friends lose parents, and I had two of my best friends lost their sister during COVID, and my husband lost a best friend. And I just think my priorities overall really have changed. I threw myself into volunteering, as Liz knows, because we do a lot together. I had a real worry about local businesses, particularly the restaurant community, about food insecurity. I started volunteering for CEO, got involved with Fork Over Love, which some of you know, which is another method of supporting restaurants and feeding the community. And I had this need to be more hands-on and to actually see the impact I was making. And I think even now, I'm not as focused, on my career per se. I feel like, we're here, I'm working, but I just think I have other priorities right now, because I think COVID woke me up to there are other things in life than just working. And I don't know, I feel different. I think if you talk to anybody in my family, they think I'm a little nuts because I am a little different. I don't know what it is, but it's changed me.
Thank you, Ruth. Kathy?
Yeah, I can't agree more with Ruth. We just go at such a pace, and, I think it was eye-opening to kind of sit back and say, here's what's important. And, we were talking before, and, to see people waiting in line for food, people who had never had to do that, people who were struggling, businesses, local businesses. I'd open the paper and, a business was closing, and it just was heart-wrenching to see all this happening around us. And, we're spoiled. I have to say we're spoiled in this country, and you looked at it and you thought, oh my word. I remember when the announcement came, I thought, we'll be home for a week or two, and this will be kind of fun, and we'll take a break. And here we are, over a year later, and, people are just suffering. So, I had to learn a lot of things. I had to learn how to work from home. As I said, I've been working for 40 plus years. I've never worked from home. That was tough. How do you lead your team in a virtual world? Thank goodness for my grandchildren who are so clever with the computer, because, it was like Zoom. What's Zoom? Now we don't, how do we go through a day without Zoom? So I totally agree. I think different and more understanding and willing to sit back and say, here are the important things in life, and the rest will come.
Yeah, I felt a little bit of everything that you guys all just said. I have never worked harder in my life, and I am somebody that works almost 24/7, so I didn't think it was possible. But at the same token, like, my concern when I think back to where I was mentally in March, it was super laser focused on my team and my family and my friends, and making sure that everybody was doing okay. Ruth and I talked via phone, and so I was so impressed with every week you were going to CEO multiple times a week and packing food. And Tara and I were talking, and she's telling me about how she's, reinventing her shoppable website for shoes, and all of the, and how now there are, UV systems for the HVAC, and I was having those conversations all day long, and I was driving to my coworker's house dropping off things just so they could physically see us, even if we were, 20 feet apart in masks. How do you continue culture in a work environment when you're all working remotely? So we tried all the stupid things, but they, while goofy, worked because it provided something, to do. I mean, I remember I had started to learn how to play bridge a couple years ago from Walt, my teacher. Yeah. And he texted me and said, "We're thinking about doing virtual bridge this weekend. When are you available?" And I wrote back, "I am literally available any moment of any day this weekend because I had nothing." I mean, and I was thrilled to do virtual bridge. So yeah, I mean, it was just a weird time, but once we got past that, it was about how do we rebuild the community, because you're going to lose businesses. And I think, what Kathy was saying, it's heart-wrenching. We all know what it's like to run businesses, and you put your heart and your soul into it. And everything that your family has is probably in that business. And to have some random virus come and just shut it down is just, I mean, you didn't do anything wrong. You just showed up on a Wednesday. And so I think that rebuilding our community, making sure that we're okay, has become job one now.
Thank you. Well, can I make an announcement? That's the only COVID question. Thankfully, probably. And I'm going to take Tara off the hook, maybe we can end with you, and start with Ruth.
Okay, thanks.
Ruth is the only person I know that successfully lost weight during COVID. Maybe you saw that while here. So in terms of growth, what is, like, as a leader yourself, what is one characteristic or some characteristics that you believe is important for a leader to possess?
I think for me personally, perseverance has been the biggest thing that has allowed me to succeed. I don't ever give up. Also, I take risks, so I'm a big risk taker. And from the beginning days when the kids were babies and I left, a good job to start my own business. Most people wouldn't have done that. I feel like if we're not willing to take risks and fail, because there have been a lot of failures along the way, and I've tried to learn from every failure, you have to be willing to do that, use it as an opportunity to learn and grow. And when I talk to young people now, that's what I try to say, is if you really want something, you got to grasp at that goal. If it means you fail, you try again. So I think perseverance and the willingness to take risks.
Thank you, Kathy.
I would say flexibility, because as we've seen, times are forever changing, environments are forever changing, and I think unless you're able to be flexible and maneuver in those situations, you're just going to be stuck, and you won't be able to move forward with the task at hand. So in my career, that's what I've tried to do. Be flexible, listen to people, rely on people. I don't think we do enough of that. I know I'm my kids call me monk. So, I'm a control person, right? So, but I think this has taught me, and again, I think in leadership, you have to rely on other people, and they're more competent than I am, but, you've got to give them that chance. So I would say flexibility has been my big number one.
Thank you, and Liz.
I would agree with everything that Ruth and Kathy said. They're, brilliant, and so they probably said all the key points. I would only say that for me, risk-taking is a really big one. I had a friend of mine who spent a weekend with Elon Musk a couple weeks ago at SpaceX, and right before the weekend, one of their rockets had crashed. And in the interview, he said, "Well, we've just figured out another, way that we're not going to do that rocket." So he viewed that not as a failure of failure, but as a failure, and now I've learned from that, and that is, one way that we're not going to do it. And so I think that people have to remember that failure means that you're pushing yourself and taking those risks, and so not to be afraid of failure, to embrace it. And I think that probably sounds strange, but I do believe that that's an important component of leadership.
This is why I should have gone first. I'm going to say all of the above. I'm going to add humility, because I think to be a really good leader, and I think there are men who do this well, but I think women typically do it better. It's good to recognize that you don't know all the answers. It's good to recognize you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I think probably a lot of all of our success has been that we surround ourselves with really the best people we can find. And I'm not afraid of those people. I welcome those people. And I think all the good leaders that we spend time in our community with do the same. To that mentoring piece that Ruth had spoken about earlier, I think that's kind of where we all need to be looking after this whole last year. I think we've had a year of people who weren't out and about in our community that are rising leaders, and if nothing else, I would look at my job as trying to maybe get the cobwebs off them and move them out of the closet. They need to be stepping up and coming out of COVID with guns a-blazing, because we need all the great community leaders trying to save all of these businesses. The more the merrier. For sure.
Well, thank you. Thank you, ladies. Tara, I'll keep it with you. What advice would you give someone who's just starting out in your particular industry?
Well, mechanical first, definitely better than retail. Right now, mechanicals, that's a different gig. It's not such an easy startup business because there's a lot of first expense. What I would say is, whether it be any one of the many businesses I'm involved in or a totally different venture, do your homework. Surround yourself with really good counsel. You would be shocked at how many people, even when they're your competitors, will help you, just because they're those kind of people. And I think at the end of the day, you really need to go and realize you're going to stumble. And to Ruth's point, get back up. Sometimes you have to be smart enough to realize when you're stumbling that maybe the continued play is not to keep dumping money in. That's an even harder situation to face some days. But I think, you've got to get a good network, use your network, would be my best advice.
Thanks, Tara. Ruth?
I think I would say be ready for a lifetime of continuous education in marketing, and be ready to change. New technologies come every day. And I think of the early days when I started out in PR and event coordination, and it just morphed from there, because you just have to become whatever the market demands, and whether it's artificial intelligence or video, and it's constant learning curves. One of the best things I did, my son Greg came on to work with me a couple of years ago, and he forced me, we got to do this, we got to do that. You have to surround yourself with younger people who know about this stuff and do whatever you have to do. But for me, every day is an education. And you just can't be afraid of that. You have to embrace that, and you have to be willing to change if you want to succeed in any industry.
Thanks, Ruth. Kathy?
Yeah, I agree with the changing. You have to, but hard work. Everything isn't handed to us on a platter. And it's hard work, and you can't get discouraged with that, and you have to continue to move forward. And I think you need to come into it with, being part of the solution and not part of the problems. I think, and I'm guilty of this. We come in and we're quick to complain about, how something's being done or whatever. But unless you have the solution for that or an idea for that, be part of that. Always have that solution ready when you're bringing something up, and just hard work, it pays off.
Yeah. Liz?
Yeah, so they have taken all the best answers. And so I will say that in my industry, I think that you need to constantly learn. You have to have flexibility of mind. We come in with our own preconceived biases, and you need to shut those off and listen to people. Because there are a lot of people that are way smarter than I am, and I am happy to learn from them every single day. And then I think the hard work thing is, I mean, look, nobody's looking at me when I'm at work at 9 o'clock at night, and that happens more often than you think. Or when I get up at 4 a.m. now with work from home, my typical morning is I grab a cup of coffee and I sit down at my laptop and I start my day. And it takes a lot of work to build something, but it is so worth it. It's exciting and rewarding, and so I encourage everybody to do it. But don't think it's going to be a free ride for sure.
So I'm actually going to let you start, since you just it's a good segue into the work-life balance.
I'm going to take all the good answers.
You just touched on that a little bit. But what do you think you need in your work or personal life to achieve a better work-life balance? Because it sounds like you're.
Oh, I'm the worst. I have no balance. I'll just say it right there. I struggle with this every single day. I talk to all of you about it at different times. I have gotten to a point where I have to put in my calendar, hey, I'm going to meditate, and then I might do it 50% of the time. But one thing that I've learned in this past year, give myself a break, because I try and be the best at everything I do, and then when I fail, I sort of internally beat myself up. And and that is a constant thing that I know all people struggle with, like turning off that voice and saying, you know what, good enough is good enough sometimes, I'm probably the worst person to answer that question, because I really have no idea how to get a better balance. I'm constantly working at it. I hope to play more golf this year. We'll see how that comes. It's probably not going to happen. But I do go on vacation, and oftentimes I choose destinations that are inaccessible so that I am inaccessible, and that is where I really reset. So
Vacation's good.
Well, what I found is, again, over the years, businesses had an opening time and a closing time. And as technology grew and grew and grew, we have no opening time, nor do we have a closing time. We're available 24/7. And so I think the onus is on us, certainly, to say to ourselves, look, I need to back off. And I think if COVID has taught us anything, it's taught us to take time for ourselves. Although I did say at the beginning that I was going to exercise and lose weight, but I didn't do any of that. So I didn't take time for that. But I think you need to take that time for yourself. I have been fortunate to work for a company that really does focus on work-life balance. I've never missed, when my children were growing up, I never missed a game. I never, missed anything they participated in. And the same with my grandchildren. So, again, I think companies now, they are very understanding of that, and they want you to have that work-life balance, but I think you really need to get your mindset that I'm going to take time for myself.
That's probably one of my biggest struggles, and I'm guilty as charged, like Liz. And I've always worked virtually, so from day one, I had a home office. So I can be at my desk at 5 a.m. and I could still be there at 10. And on the weekends, it's too easy to get sucked back into that. I'm just going to check an email, and then 3 hours later, you're still at your desk. I am trying to improve that. I try to get out. I know I talk to some of you. I'll take my dogs for walks, so I get out and get some fresh air during the day. I'll do that a couple times a day. And also, like Liz, I found myself going on vacation, but I'd still be working, or I'd still be answering emails. So now I try to go places where it's not as easy to do that. I haven't been anywhere recently, but to try to walk away and decompress, I think it's important. I get on the bandwagon with meditation and things like that, and it doesn't last. Maybe you do it for a couple of days. I just need to learn to walk away or turn it off and maybe in my head set those work hours where I don't have to work this weekend. Just because it's there and my computer's in my house, I don't have to sit at it and work. So
I'm going to add one more thing to that, and that is, Ruth, you said, and Liz, you go away and you go somewhere where you're inaccessible. When you're on vacation, you pick those up. And I can't tell you how many times my family has said to me, "What are you doing?" And I say, "Oh, let me just make this call," or "Let me just do this," and how it really affects our families and those surrounding us. So just one more thing to make sure you take time for yourself.
I had, and along those lines, when I worked in DC, I worked for the managing partner of the firm, and I'll never forget, he called me up, and I said, "Hey, Doug, I thought you were on vacation." He said, "I told my wife I was just getting a knife to cut the orange, so we got to make this quick." So everybody struggles with it.
I'm a failure at all of the same things that we were having this conversation about. Sarah Foley fired me from meditation. Like Shavasana is my thing. Yeah. That's the only meditation I can do. I had a visit from a high school, childhood, lifelong friend, maybe 2 weeks ago, and her daughter is a fallout of COVID, and she got stuck in the not really being in the dorm situation and all this stuff. So she called me. Her parents were here. She said, "Hey, I see her at reunions. That's it. But, we were friends since we were in first grade. Can you meet me? I want to have lunch with you. I want you to meet my daughter. She's going to move into my grandparents' house. If we have a problem, could you just..." "Yeah, no problem." So I bring my daughter with us. We go to the Skillet for breakfast, and Teresa says to me, "Hey, how do you do all this? How do you actually get all this done?" And my now graduating from high school daughter says, "I'm incredibly self-sufficient." Which will serve her well sometimes. Yeah. That was like ripping the Band-Aid off for me. I thought, there's a price tag for all of this. There's no doubt about it. And to your point, hard work is hard work. You got to have some luck too. Mm-hmm. But everybody in your family pays a price for the accessibility and the hard work and the careers that we've all had. And I'm not saying I wouldn't do it again. But I am saying, to Ruth and my discussion earlier, I have started to plan some things that will be, once I am an empty nester here in the next few months, I'm going to be going to see my kids, and I'm going to figure out how to turn that computer off, and I'm going to make the time, because I'm losing time. We're all losing time, and COVID has certainly taught me that. So we'll see. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Alex is self-sufficient. So I'm self-sufficient when they leave.
Yeah. You're going to go to visit them, they're not going to want to see you.
I'm getting that.
Thank you, ladies. As you are all past Athena winners, award winners, how do you encourage future leaders within your organizations or your industries? Ruth, let's start with you.
I think for me, I try to encourage them to participate. I don't always think it's comfortable for women if they haven't done it. So I try to, I always think if you have a friend or have a buddy, invite them to come along. I invite them to get actively involved with things that I'm involved in and just take them along for the ride. But we had this discussion a little bit earlier that we're all old and tired, so we need to encourage this young leadership to come aboard. But I think giving them a helping hand and being there with them to get them introduced to something and then kind of handing it off is the way that I do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I like to do. I like to introduce them to things I'm involved with. If I'm on some committee, I ask the committee, and just try to get them involved and get out there and, show them what's going on in this community. I'm a big proponent of Leadership Wilkes-Barre. I think that really not only has an impact with showing us how our community and the needs in our community, but you make lifelong friends through leadership. I have to say, I don't hesitate to ever pick the phone up and call anybody, knowing that and I can say, hey, we were in leadership, this time, how about, can you help me out with this? And, I think that the younger leaders and women need to, do that and make those bonds. They are priceless.
Liz?
So internally and externally are a little bit different for me. First of all, I work with a small team, and half of them are family, so
Yeah.
just all that with that. I have learned that one of the greatest words in life is delegate. And I have been doing much more delegating internally, and that has allowed younger team members to shine and really showcase what they can achieve. And I'm loving it because I'm learning from them, and learning more about what they're capable of doing, and then I'm giving them more. It's like that's how that works. So internally, I would say giving them projects and letting them run with it. Externally, I think it's really important to pay it forward. We have some, actually, we are blessed with a large group of phenomenally talented women leaders. And I have met them that are, 23 years old, right out of college. They're 32 years old. They're 48 years old, all different age ranges. But we really have a tremendous community of young women leaders. And they have figured out how to network with each other, which is something that took me a long time to figure out. They have a great support network with each other, and I love seeing it. And I love saying, hey, what if we got together for lunch? Let's go for a walk. Susan and I had a phenomenal walk 2 weeks ago. That was my one work-life balance thing by the last month, but so I'm looking for the next walk. But we really we're very fortunate in this community to have some great young women leaders.
Thanks. Tara?
I'm going to agree with everything they all said and hope that we see more of them emerge. I think that it's theirs for the taking. I think there's a lot of opportunity in our community. Much to Ruth's point, we're on the different side of things. When I look back and I see what the chamber is doing with the whole young entrepreneurs, it is an amazingly strong organization. It's vital. It's important. They're doing great work. And I've never seen traction like this before. So like to Liz's point, I think we are all responsible to continue to lift them up, but I think they are a force to be reckoned with. And
They
I'm
are.
very excited.
It bodes well for this area.
It certainly does.
Well, thank you. We have 2 questions left. And so the question Carrie asked was about emerging leaders. This is about you as a leader. So Tara, what are you doing to ensure that you continue to grow and develop as a leader?
So you're telling me I don't get to retire off into the I just think I need to get more focused. I mean, we are a little, having taken over a different business and gone in a different direction and having it be probably the most challenging time for small business ever. I'm distracted a little bit, and I'm a little scatterbrained, and I'm a little all over the map. My team has done a really good job with me of trying to work through a lot of that in all of the different areas I'm at. But I think I need to get recentered, and whether that's meditation, a walk with Mrs. Magnotta, or going out with my dogs, I think I would feel better if I was a little more settled, and I think that's a project for me for the next coming year. But I think as a leader, if you don't continue to grow, you die, and I'm looking for what that next kind of chapter is going to look like for me. Stay tuned.
I think for me, it's learning, growth and learning. I'm lucky, a little bit different than some of you are totally different, a diversity of clients from small startup businesses to national corporations. So every day for me is a learning experience. I get to learn new businesses, new industries, and I think that's what keeps me going. Not that I want to do this forever, but it's a challenge, and I think it keeps things fresh for me. So it keeps every day exciting, and I think that's what's on tap for me.
I have two things, I guess. Business-wise, again, with the ever-changing market conditions and tax laws and estate planning and things like that, I'm constantly learning and learning along with them. But I have been involved with some virtual events that we've been doing, right? We had to cancel them last year. This year they're virtual, they're drive-through, they're, online auctions. That's been interesting. And it's been amazing, the dollars that, we've been able to raise. That, for me, was a learning experience because I've never had to do it. And how do you host a drive-through dinner and still get people engaged and, get them to sponsor these events? So mine's twofold, again, community-wise and work-wise.
So, I don't know if this is a new thing, but learning is definitely, you're just constantly learning. I don't care if you're in year 1 of your career or year 40 of your career. If you're not learning, then your industry is leaving you in the dust. And so you have to constantly be focused on learning. My dad is 86 years old. He still actively works in our business. I sit down with him and have coffee every morning. I am, very fortunate that I have that ability to do that. And we talk about business, and I am constantly learning from that. But it's also a great example of staying engaged. He's going to kill me, but he'll never see it because it's on Facebook. So he said to me the other day, he said to me, 8 months ago, I want to get back in a kayak again. And he has severe mobility issues. And so I said, okay, well, how are you going to make that happen? And he said, well, I've researched, different docks that would allow me to get in and out of a kayak. I think if I sit on the top of the kayak, and I'm going to get my hip replaced. And I'm like, okay, sounds like a good plan. So he got his hip replaced 2 weeks ago. He is focused on getting back in a kayak so he can go around the lake. He's 86 years old. Never stop setting goals, no matter what those goals may be. And it just keeps you young at heart and engaged. So that's my plan.
From 5th grade on.
Yeah.
All right, last question, ladies. I've changed it up so it's a little bit more fun and easy. What are you most looking forward to for the remainder of 2021?
Sitting at a bar. Other people cardboard cutouts.
That's good.
That's lots of other things but that person.
Ruth? I think for me it's travel. I'm going to go visit my daughter in California in May. We're going to Bermuda this year. I just want to, every month I want to go someplace. I miss travel more than anything. So that's on top for me.
Well, traveling would be nice. I have a new grandchild coming in the middle of June. A wedding we have a baby shower, a baby, a wedding shower, and a wedding because of all the rescheduling from last year. So I'm looking forward for that to actually be behind me because it's overwhelming.
I'm looking forward to seeing people. It's that basic, right? I mean, it's just been, this year's been a hell of a year, right? I mean, it just has. And I feel like people, I think that mentally they have struggled. And so my goal for the rest of the year is to be present, to call my friends, to spend time with my friends, to check in on folks, and just reconnect. So
Sounds good.
Very good, ladies. Thank you all for being so candid today. We appreciate appreciate the time. And I think I'll turn it back to Lindsay.
And thank you all so much. I think everybody that's watching too can see we're so lucky to have these four amazing women with us in the community. And I think you touched on it a lot, but I mean, we have such a wonderful young professionals group as well at the chamber, and so many different efforts that we're working towards. And I think one of the things that we're seeing, and they're telling us, when we get past COVID, our next generations are going to be the most entrepreneurial, the most community-minded. And I think just being able to hear this today, because it really shows how to get involved in really hearing your four stories, but really what you can do when you're able to kind of, get community involved in the resources that you shared today, because we really do need that in this area. So we're so excited for that next generation. I know so many people that are watching from Young Professionals, your Women's Network, your Diversity Council, are looking for that engagement. And I do think just hearing from the four of you today is really, really special and inspirational. I know for all of us that were here today. So thank all of you.
Thank
really
you.
doing. Speaking of amazing female leaders, I'm going to pass it to Liz Graham. She is going to make an exciting phone call, and we are going to find out who our 2021 Athena recipient is if she answers the phone. So we'll see. It's always the risk we take when we do live, but we're very excited to make this announcement.
Well, I will tell you that I think we all know this woman because she is at everything. And to your point about being solution-oriented, this is a solution-oriented leader. And so I won't make the mistake that I did with Ruth, where I didn't announce the name, but I'm going to wait until she answers the phone. So let's see. Hey, it's Kathy Bankus, and
that was an awesome panel.
Kathy, I so appreciate that, but the truth of the matter is, we're still on, and I am calling this year's Athena recipient as we speak.
Congratulations.
So, Kathy Bankus is an extraordinary leader. She is the head of Mets Catering. You know her from Ruth Chris, and frankly, you know her because she's involved in every community initiative that has probably ever been produced. I've worked with you for 20 years. I think we all can say the same thing. And we are so proud to call you an Athena leader for 2021.
I'm never speechless, and I am speechless right now. Thank you. And I also don't cry, and I'm crying.
We love you, Kathy.
I don't even know what to say. I just want to be
We'll send you everything.
We'll send you all of that, but we look forward to celebrating you and everything you've contributed to this community, and well deserved, Kathy.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm not sure that I really deserve it.
You do deserve it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Enjoy this, and we'll get back to you with all the details.
Bye.
Take care.
That never gets old.
my God.
I have to tell you,
That's so nice.
everyone who wins this award
Yes.
is shock and awe. No
Yeah.
one expects it. It is not something anybody strives for, and it never gets said, but truly, Kathy's in shock.
Yeah.
She's one of the most deserving people.
Yeah.
The people who get this award are deserving, but that's not why they do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the difference, I think.
Yes.
Oriented person, and thank God we have people like Kathy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But what a great lady.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to Kathy.
Yes. And she was watching us, which I think she clearly turned it off early. But no, congratulations to Kathy, and thank you all so much for watching us. and we really encourage you to stay, engaged with our women's network. Anyone that's watching that wants to join, Carrie and Susan have been awesome leaders in that. So we'll be doing some really fun events this summer, a little bit back to in-person, some hybrid events. So definitely engage with us on that. And any of our councils and networks, like we said, we'd love to have anyone engage with us. We're all working together so strongly as we come out of this, and there's definitely a place within all of our the organization within the different councils and networks. So we encourage anyone to check that out also on our website and on our Facebook page. So thank you to all the women for joining us today. Again, it was such an honor to be with all of you. Carrie and Susan, thank you so much, and Michaela for a wonderful job in setting this up. And thank everybody for tuning in with us today. And come check out Dundee Gardens. We are sitting here and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I think we're all going to get our wallets out as soon as this ends. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.